Wow. Next episode of The Winner Circle. And today we have an amazing gentleman who is doing amazing work in South Africa and globally as a speaker. He's the founder of the Mindset Development Institute, actually. Mindset Development Institute. And his name is Mr. Jabu Zwane. Mr. Z, you need to introduce yourself to these people. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Very well as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks for having me to hang out with you and to hang out with your people. Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name is Jabu Zwane. I'm a mindset development specialist and an entrepreneur. I'm also a father of 5 beautiful children. And I'm married.
Ladies, he's married.
Yeah, but also, I'm a South African who's very passionate about the progress of our country, the development of our people. And I'm very passionate about the issues that are facing our country. And hence, I'm quite active in the space of, being the change that I would love to see in my country, as opposed to sitting on the sidelines and complaining about what's not working and always talking about somebody must.
What do you think is not working that needs fixing?
There's a lot. I think, for me, it's always about mindsets. I think everything is always about a way of thinking. I think that we've fed a lot of wrong ways of thinking, which kind of translates that into what we do or what we don't do as a country. Mm-hmm. From the leadership, all the way from the top of the leadership, all the way down to the bottom, where is our children and students. I believe that there's a lot that there's a lot that needs to be done, specifically regarding the way that we think. The way we think about ourselves, which is primarily where everything starts. Our identity as a people. The fact that there's so much confusion about our identity. As a South African, really, who are we? Do we really have some kind of an avatar that explains what a South African typically is? I think that many times, a lot of us, we lurch onto things that sort of describe us a bit. Like right now, we've got the Rugby World Cup. And everybody's like, oh, we're South African because of green and gold and something happening. But we all know that as soon as the euphoria of the World Cup is gone, we're going to be back at each other's throat, back to load shedding, back to everything else that is currently crippling our country.
What do you mean back to load shedding? We still have load shedding even now.
Yeah, but have you seen anybody complaining about it now?
It's better. Now there's the World Cup.
The World Cup now, it's better now. But as soon as the World Cup is done, what happens? We're back into the stage 8.
Yeah. So we sort of jumped right into it there. Guys, remember to subscribe and click on the notifications bell. Comment, let us know what your thoughts are. We sort of jumped into the conversation there, but I know a lot of people don't really know your story, where it begins. I always say that I'm more interested in the story more than the glory. A lot of the times when people introduce themselves, they'll say, I'm Jabu Zwane. I'm the founder of the Mindset Development Institute. I'm a speaker. I'm a businessman. I've achieved this. I've achieved that. That's the glory. Yeah, those are the things you've been able to achieve.
Okay, yeah.
But there's a story behind all of those things that you've been able to achieve. Without the story, the glory doesn't exist. So where does your story start?
I'll say that I'm a typical black South African who grew up in the...
We don't speak like you, my man. I'm typical. I don't talk like you.
Yeah, but
there's no typical black South African that speaks like you.
I am very much a typical black South African in that sense.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled by the accent. I picked this up on the street somewhere. Somewhere down the line, I realized, if I go web and all of that, nobody takes me.
We'll get circles. We'll get into the reason why you ended up picking up that accent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I grew up in the Free State. I grew up in a township in the Free State. It's called Ntalendli, which is a very tiny place, just on your way to Bethlehem, which is what most people know. On your way to Lesotho before Senegal. It's like a little tiny place there called Ntalendli. That's where I grew up. I grew up typically poor, just like everybody else. Poverty back then was not anything uncommon. In fact, many of us didn't even know that we were poor, except if you were really, really poor, which I think I was. No shoes, hardly any food, all of that stuff. Yeah, I grew up typically in a household where it was my grandfather who raised us. My mother was working as a domestic worker. as it was the case back in the days, they were not getting paid enough money. And so my mother hardly came to visit, And unfortunately, in my case, my father was not well mentally in many different ways. And so as a result, he couldn't even also be present as a father. So I grew up in the Free State in that way, as Jabu Zwane in a predominantly Basotho area, obviously.
A Zulu surname in a Sotho area?
Yeah, I mean, it's very common in the Free State, honestly. I mean, if you think about it, it's right next to the KZN.
Sure.
So it's very common to see Jabu Zwane, Msimanga, Shabalala, Ndlovu, you name them. I mean, there are plenty of those type of surnames in the Free State. It's actually only when you come to Joburg that people get surprised that I have the surname. But back in the Free State, we have all sorts of, we have a diversity of people. Yeah, I came up to Joburg around 1999. Yeah, 99. I finished my matric into 1997. 1998, I couldn't go to school. I hung around.
School as university?
University, yes. I couldn't. I didn't know where my mother was, and my father, of course, I didn't know where he was either. So I was just roaming around different places, trying to find work, all of that. But then finally, I found my way up to Joburg through an assistance of a friend called Nico de Klerk. He's an Afrikaans guy.
Where did you get a white person from now, Jabu, in the Free State? There?
Interesting is that in 1994, when the white schools were opened for us black people to go into in the Free State, I forged my mother's signature to apply for acceptance at the school in town.
For a scholarship or what?
No, just to attend school there. And because
how old were you?
It was grade 9. Grade 8. There was a time where grade 8 was still in primary school. There was like a short period where grade 8 fell under primary school.
Mm-hmm.
And then grade 9, which is 1994.
Was it not middle school or something?
Standard 6.
Standard.
Standard 6.
We release up A, sub B.
Yeah, that's
standard
what I did.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So it was standard 7. So which is 1994. That's when I went there. I mean, typically because I forged my own signature, I didn't have money for school fees. So I spent most of the years not paying school fees, and then finally I found somebody told me that I could actually, ask for maintenance for my father because he was getting pension from the job where he used to work for the condition that he had. So the judge then sort of then subpoenaed, they forced him to pay me that 150 rand a month.
You took your own father to court?
I did.
Tell me more about that.
I did. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I was staying with my grandfather. I didn't know where my mother was. And most of the time, I mean, there's no, you didn't have, honestly, to be honest with you, except for pofu, your maize meal. Most of the time, you don't have anything else to eat. And then I had a situation at school where if I didn't pay, I felt like I was going to get kicked out. Mm-hmm. And then I knew about maintenance and stuff like that. And my father would typically, at the end of the month, go and get the money from the ATM, and then it would be blown with girls because he wasn't well. And so some of these girls would come and take advantage of him and take his money. And so that's when I took him to court. I'm like, well, let me go to court and get this man to maintain me. So then the judge then granted me a 150 rand maintenance fee, which is then what I used to pay for my school fees.
And how old are you at that time?
Yeah, I was about 15 at the time. Yeah,
15 years old.
Yeah, 15 years old.
Yeah, and then he paid through your high school.
Yeah, so I used that money then to pay through high school. But then he disappeared in matric, so I found myself. That's where the story comes in. And then in matric, I found myself not being able to pay for school fees. So after I finished my matric, I went back to school to this principal to say to him, listen, dude, I don't have any money. I don't have any means of paying for the school fees. Can you at least give me my matric certificate? Mm. And then the school principal at the time, Mr. de Klerk, says to me, yeah, it's fine. We'll give it to you. No problem. And then he tells me that he's got a brother up in Pretoria, Nico.
Oh, when you say a friend of yours helped you, you mean Mr. de Klerk, your principal?
No, this is the case.
Yeah.
My school principal was Mr. de Klerk. Yes. Not the one that helped me. The one who was my school principal happens to be the brother with the guy who helped me.
Okay, so you've got two guys.
Yes.
Both
So
of
the
them.
clerk tells me, listen, I've got a brother up in Pretoria,
Mm.
and then this guy I think he can help you. And so he calls him twice, and then he lets him know. But unfortunately, after that time, I spoke to him, the mass school principal, he passes on. He dies.
Mhm.
He has some kind of a condition and he passes away. But then it turns out that before that, he had already spoken to his brother.
Mm.
So then his brother calls around looking for me, tells me, listen, my brother spoke to me about you, so I don't know what he wants me to do, but can you come up
To Pretoria.
to Pretoria?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you when to come up. And then I decide to leave. And I leave and I go to Vereniging and I hang around there with a cousin of mine waiting for Mr. de Klerk. Finally, I call the man, and yeah, that's how I came up to Joburg. But then he finds me a job at an ice cream factory, Marlborough, just outside of Alex.
Mm. And where are you staying at the time? You were staying in Vereniging. Then he gets you a job. Where are you staying?
This is where it gets interesting. So when I get up to Alex, I don't have anywhere to stay. He got me a job, but now I got to find myself a accommodation.
Was that the agreement? I'll get you a job, find yourself
You
accommodation.
figure it out, yeah. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in Alex. I'm freaked out about being in Alex, being a Free State boy, afraid of all the totis. Because when you're in the small towns, you hear all stories about these Joburg guys and how they can stab you with a knife. I was afraid of being stabbed with a knife. So as I start working here, I meet up with the security guard, and then I tell him my story.
Where are you sleeping? You haven't told us where you're sleeping.
This is what I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
My first job, my first day at work with this guy, which is Mr. de Klerk, comes and drops me there at this job. I meet up with the security guard, I tell him my story, and he says to me, come and stay with me. I go and stay with the security guard. Dude has 2 guns.
Guns.
Got 2 guns.
Yeah. The work one, obviously. And what?
No, not even work one. It's his guns. And then it's this guy, and he's a typical, for me in my mind, he was a typical Joburg guy that I was afraid of. And
so now you're staying with the guy
I'm
that you're
staying with the
afraid
guy I'm afraid of, but now he's got my back. He's like, well, don't worry, nobody's gonna mess with you, because they will know that you're not from here in Alex, and then you, So the guy decides to protect me.
You when he comes to Joburg.
Yeah, but it didn't really work out so well between him and I, because his wife was his girlfriend, wife / it wasn't working out very well. So then
What, the girlfriend wanted you?
No, didn't want me per se. They fought too much. They were fighting a lot, man.
Oh, they were fighting.
They were fighting a lot, and it freaked me out a little bit. And so then I decided that
you couldn't say anything because you're afraid of guns.
Oh, I'm afraid of this dude, man. So then I find out from the mechanic that, hey, listen, there's the abandoned building right next to where I'm working. So then I move into this abandoned building, but I can only move in there at night when the other security guard doesn't see me. That comes at night.
Yeah.
So I need to sneak in
To sleep.
and sleep into this abandoned building. And
How long did you sleep?
4 months.
How long did you stay with the guy?
About a week or 2.
And you were hot for a long
I was like,
2 weeks.
no, it was too much, man. That's too much trauma. It was just too much drama. And then I left. And so then I found myself staying there for 4 months. Broken windows, broken door. Used to be afraid that the sorties will come and rob me. And then I remember I've got nothing for them to rob. I'd be like, it'd be fascinating if they came here and they find nothing. Maybe they'll beat me up. But anyway, and then I'll start practicing karate. True story. I mean, listen, I come from the Free State where you used to watch Bioscope, with Jackie Chan and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's still that innocence in my mind that, push-ups and, get strong in case these guys come here, I can take them out. I'm about 18 at the time. At least if they come in, at least I can be strong enough to take them on, Anyway, so yeah. And so then from there, I tell Mr. de Klerk, listen, this is not working out, because the guy where I was working, they were not paying me. They were not paying me all the time. Like, these people are not always paying me. I'm earning 35 rand a day, cleaning the floors, and then I would do double shift, and double shift is helping the night staff it's an ice cream factory with the syrup. They used to call it soft serve. So then you cook in the soft serve at night, and then for the whole 24 hours, they'll pay you $50. So, and then the guy started not paying me, and then it was a bit uncomfortable. So then he decides then to take me up and come and stay with him in Pretoria. And then he starts a biltong business where I'm selling biltong on the streets, at the traffic lights, at school functions. And then I got this great opportunity to be selling biltong at Loftus. And it was
Was it during a rugby match?
Exactly. Yeah. Seeing Jonah Lomu's massive thighs, man. Yeah, so I used to go then to those to Loftus Felsfeld to go sell biltong. And then from that, he was like, dude, you need to figure something out. And then I went to look for a job as a waiter. Mm-hmm. And then it was from waitering, then things started looking up. Because then from there, I became a restaurant manager. From being a restaurant manager, then one of the dealer principals for a Ford Motor Company likes me, and he decides to give me a job as a sales executive.
You've sold cars?
Yeah, sold cars, man.
What have you not done? So you've sold ice cream, or you've made ice cream?
I sold and made ice cream.
You sold and made ice cream.
I cleaned the streets. I've been a vendor on the streets. I've been a vendor in stadiums. So yeah. And then ultimately, I get to that point where I'm selling cars, and then I get a car, I get a license. Now I'm 21. Now I'm driving. Yeah, and then from there, man, I started finding my way going into insurance.
Now you far off from that kid that grew up without present parents.
Yeah,
that grew up in poverty, and then now you've got your own car. You've got a place that you can afford. Mm-hmm. You've got money. Now, So what's your mindset now?
Hey, man.
What's your outlook now in life?
Reflecting back, I realized something which I think is very important to understand as far as mindsets. You know, sometimes when you grow up being so poor and accepting, for the most part, that you are not as important, as valuable as everybody else, you kind of also treat the very things that are supposed to take you out and make you someone. You don't treat money very well. I gave my money. I gave a lot of my money away.
Why? Was there a feeling of
reflecting
too
back,
much or what?
Reflecting back now, I realized it's for the same reasons that people who are poor who get to win lottery, they do it for the same thing. You see, when you know how to be nothing, you don't want anybody to ever feel like that. You know that pain. So there's a part of you that then tries to get other people out of that and part of it is that because you're used to it, it's like, no, I'm fine. It's okay if I can still make the money anyway. So let me get you out of your shame. So there's a part of you that tries to buy people out of the shame because you don't want them to feel the way that you feel when you don't have money. It is for the same reason why these people that are on a blew it. They do it for the same reason.
But they buy cars and houses. When did you buy a car and a house?
I did buy a car, which I
thought you were given the first one.
No, when I left the sales executive job, I bought my own car because then I went into insurance and I needed to have a car. So I bought my first car at the age of 21, and then I was then selling insurance for Sage Life at the time. And then from there moved into F&B insurance, then Sanlam, then Outsurance. Then I was in insurance for about 5-6 years. Then eventually getting to the point where I was manager. But I'm saying I didn't figure that out for quite some time, that I did not treat money as a tool that can get me where I want to go. I was just very relieved that I was not where I was, and where I had become was much better than where I was. But I didn't really learn what to do with being in a better place. I really didn't know what to do. I didn't learn what to do. I didn't learn what to do with money. I mean, I could have very easily started a property business back then because at the age of 21, I was earning 21,000 on a regular basis.
What year is this? 1999.
This was in 2000.
2000. 25,000 rands was a lot of money.
There's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. I mean, it was a lot. It was even a lot for me. I mean, it was just like,
it away.
put my visa. Put my Lisa wherever I went, you know. And I really didn't know. I remember, I mean, I used to buy my mother 3,000 rands worth of groceries and stuff like that, buy things that she didn't even want. But I didn't, if I had the kind of knowledge that I have now that you talk about, that you're showing, especially on this, it's more than just money movement, it would have definitely done a lot in terms of shifting my mindset, at least igniting some kind of financial mindset, which I didn't have.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
you thought money was for what?
Honestly, a lot of it was about relief. So there was a lot of relief spend. What is a relief spend? Relief spend is, I can afford to buy nice, expensive shoes now. Let me buy them. I can afford to get the kind of food that I never had.
KFC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guys mustn't laugh about this one.
Okay, cool.
I used to love eggs growing up, but I didn't get an opportunity to eat as much eggs as I wanted to. And then one day I decided to buy a dozen of eggs and went to work.
Okay, you bought a dozen eggs.
Dozen eggs.
That's
fried
12,
them.
right?
Yeah. Fried them and I went to work. And then I bought full chicken one day and I went to work.
Wait.
Full
you
chicken.
All the eggs to work?
No, I didn't take them. I just made them. And I chowed the eggs for all the times I didn't get the eggs that I wanted. And then I bought full chicken, bruh.
Yeah.
I bought full chicken, roasted chicken. I mean, you must understand. I mean, you come from the Free State and you get to the Joburg and you get them nice roasted spa chicken. It tastes better than pretty much anything you've known. And then I bought the whole thing and I went to work. I went and I bought stuff that I even got sick the one time because this one is a bit more embarrassing. A loaf of polony. And I got sick and vomited the damn thing.
Did you eat all of it?
I couldn't. My body just could not take the whole thing. And I vomited the whole bloody thing.
What was the plan?
I was just to eat it. It's bologna. I never have to use that bologna and cheese like the other guys.
All your life.
You know what I'm saying?
And now you can afford it.
I mean, the guys next door and the guys, whose parents were teachers and business people, they're the ones who had bologna and cheese, The rest of us, if you're lucky, you had 2 slices of bread with a bit of jam or with some butter, if you were lucky. But most of the time, you literally didn't have food. And you'd be like, when the guys are chowing, they start making jokes.
You make jokes?
Yeah, you make jokes for because once you start making them laugh, like, twara. So you're trading jokes for lunch.
Those are survival skills.
Survival skills. You trade jokes for lunch, brother. You give people what they want, they give you what you want. I learned that from back then. Like, you give people what they want, what they need, and then they'll give you what you want. So that's literally how I got most of my lunch in school.
Mm.
Yeah, but anyway, so release spend is clothes. Release spend is stuff that you don't necessarily need. You buy a bunch of expensive things that you don't even need, but you don't necessarily have a plan as far as multiplying the income, growing the income. By the time that I figured out and I learned about the fact that I could have started things like property, it was much, much later in life. And the thing is, you must understand, when you come up to the place like Joburg, when you're coming from a Free State, especially from a small town like I came from, there's a lot of you that has fear of people. So you spend a lot of your life being alone, figuring things out on your own, because you understand that if I figure it out on my own, I'm safe. So there's a lot of mistrust that you have for people. As much as I'm socially, flexible and I can connect with people and stuff like that, but I wouldn't let people necessarily know that I wasn't as smart as they thought I was. I wasn't as poor as I knew myself to be. I wasn't as unknowledgeable as I knew myself to be. So you sit back and you observe, and you take in the information and you build your understanding, and then you use that information then to conduct yourself in whatever public spaces you find yourself in.
Mm. So, I mean, moving on, and you then building your career and then you then picking up certain mindsets.
Yeah.
What is the one that you think now started to carry you from one career to another, giving you victory? The one mindset that you think you picked up all the way from the time you started with the ice cream to your next job and your next one and your next one. I mean, you said you eventually became a manager when you were in the restaurant space. And in insurance, you eventually became a top salesman and eventually became a manager.
Yeah.
And you did extremely well. Discounting the money part, we'll talk about it later, but the winning around that, what was the key mindset that carried you?
The one mindset that really carries me even today is I always think of the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is how far low can I go? Like if things didn't work out today, what is the worst that can come out? And then I think of then the best case scenario. So in my mind, I'll say, okay, even if I lost everything that I had today, at least I'll land over there. So in my mind, and then I write off whatever I can possibly lose. I'll write it off. And I'll work in my mind as if I'm already at the bottom. As if I'm already there. And then I'll start working my way up from there. So anything from there going up for me is a plus. And that gives me that dopamine boost. That gives me that motivational energy. So I'll give you a simple example. Recently, the one partnership that I had in business was cancelled. And that basically I saw myself almost losing 40% of the income that I normally make. So I start playing in my mind. What is the worst case scenario? This thing is gone. Then I've got 60%. Okay, what if I lose another 20%? Then I've got 40%. Can I survive from 20%? And no, I can't survive. So what do I need to do then to make sure that I can survive from 40%? And I start making that adjustment. And I start working from the 40%, even though I'm already at 60. I start working from that. And I start thinking, what do I need to do? Who do I know? Where do I need to go? I start making phone calls. I start, understanding what else I have not done that led to me losing that 40%. And I start adding, I start putting everything else that I hadn't done. I start working on that. And then from there, things start to shoot up. And that has always been my mindset, is that play the worst case scenario. Because once you play the worst case scenario and you've lived the trauma in your head, then move on, let it go. I always say, go to your worst fear. Don't run away from the worst fear. Play the worst fear in your mind and go and see yourself having lost everything and ask yourself, is that where you want to end up? Because the challenge with a lot of people, and the reason why most people don't change their lives, is that they don't play the worst case scenario in their heads. They run away from it. But feel the fear. Feel the worst case. And then ask yourself, can you build from that? Because once you've been there, then you're able to go up. And then, of course, have your best case scenario. And then ask yourself, best case scenario, what do I need to do to get to the best case scenario?
Yep.
And that's constantly what I do. I'm a worst case scenario, best case scenario kind of guy. I go first to the worst case scenario, and then from the worst case scenario, and then I'll build myself up to the best case scenario all the time. I don't like avoiding. I'm not avoidant of what the worst that could come.
So I know that eventually you became a pastor.
Yeah.
And you were a man of the cloth. And you were in the faith and you ran a church. Can you take us through how you ended up there?
2000, I came across an African-American brother who was a missionary. I was already Christian. I was attending another church. I meet him at the university campus, going to visit my then girlfriend. And then he tells me about this church, and I start visiting the church. And then a mentorship, discipleship, as we call it in Christianity, builds up from then. I'm age of 20. And then this gentleman teaches me a lot about being a man. I mean, having grown up without a father and being raised by a grandfather was totally overwhelmed with having to raise a bunch of grandchildren. You know, you don't get a lot of chance to learn anything much about being a man. So this man teaches everything. I remember he used to say to me, Jabs, presentation. Ladies love presentation. So that's when I learned about presentation. It didn't help me very much because my proposal was horrible.
Your proposal.
Yeah, it's
You had the
terrible.
presentation, but you couldn't deliver the message.
But I learned about flowers. I learned about presenting myself, smelling nice, being well groomed, being well spoken. And quite a lot of the way that I speak is influenced by this man,
Yeah.
It's
I was
influenced a
about
lot
to
about
ask
him.
if that's where you picked up the accent.
I picked up the accent back in the school, man. I picked up an accent from New York Undercover, man. I picked up an accent from listening to rap.
Yeah.
I picked up the accent from watching movies back in the day. Because some of that's, here's the thing about it is that some people are auditory. This is what people understand sometimes about the human beings. Some people are auditory. Some people can pick up sounds. They can hear like nuances in sounds better than most people. People that easily can move in and out of a different accent. It's not necessarily intentional per se. It's like when I'm in the States, I speak differently than when I'm over here because I'm auditory. I pick up sounds. I can hear the nuances in the way that people speak. When I'm in Joburg speaking fast, I speak differently. Every time I've listened to myself speak in different places, I speak differently because first of all, English is not my first language. It's a borrowed language. And I just use it as nothing but a communication tool. And in terms of communication, I understand that communication is about being understood and it's about being able to connect. And that's why it's for us, especially who are non-native English speakers, we hear them, but the better you can hear the sound. I mean, that's why we have different accents. It's got nothing to do with anything necessarily. But at a particular point, I took a decision. I took a decision then to hold a certain posture when it comes to my accent, which is what I have now. But if you listen to me 7 years ago, I speak a lot differently than I am. I speak more American than I speak the way that I do. Right now, I have what I call a more international accent. So it's a lot easier for an American to hear me, for a British person to hear me, for a South African to hear me. People don't struggle necessarily to make out what I'm saying because I've kind of somehow in my own mind found a way to express myself in a way that I suppose would be more internationally palatable, I think.
So when you were the man of the cloth, were you also working on your business? Were you still employed? Or was that now you were hired to do that job?
No, I was never hired to do the job, and I never got paid as a pastor, contrary to what many people actually think.
We thought pastors get paid.
A lot of pastors, as a matter of fact, especially if you're starting your own church, most pastors don't get paid. If there's anything, we take money from our families actually to build churches. Mm-hmm. Our families actually are the ones that suffer the most from our activities in being a pastor. If you're talking about a proper pastor who is all about loving people and caring for people, mm-hmm. If you're talking about somebody that really understands the call to lay down your life, to be self-sacrificial, to love people to your own hurt, and those type of people, they don't take money from the church. So what happened is that I was working and I got called in to be a pastor, and I went to Bible college and I studied and I got my 4-year degree in theology. And when I took on the job in 2007, started serving as an assistant, and then I started my own church in 2008 in Amapius. 2010, my pastor from the main church went back to the USA because he was an American as well. The whole family, everybody went back to the US, and I was then asked to take over both churches. So I found myself pastoring 3 churches. And then we let go of the one in Mamelodi, and then we only left with the one in Pretoria and in Amapius. And then 2010, then my wife and I agreed that she would continue with her career as an executive, and then I would leave my work. At the time, I was a manager in one of the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So I left my very fancy job, and I was running a business right at the time, selling clothes, in the workplace. And I went into full-time ministry. So that's how then I got to be into full-time ministry. What
are the lessons that you took from ministry that you think could be used in business?
The one thing is what everybody sees now, but they don't always pick it up, is that people are highly influenceable. People are as human beings, we are highly influenceable. We are more influenceable than we think we are. Most people don't have their own ideas. Most people don't have their own thoughts. Most people don't have even their own plans to become something that they personally want. Most people actually are living off of borrowed ideas. Whether it be borrowed ideas from what they saw somebody have, whether it be what they were told, whether it be what they're running away from, borrowed ideas. And what I learned from that is that that's why it's so easy for somebody to start a cult, to start some kind of a ministry and make people drink petrol and to eat snakes because people are highly influenceable. People, the number one question that I normally get from people is this: what do I do? The number one question that I've had as a pastor, as a coach, as a speaker, as an advisor, as a brother, whatever, is what do I do? The second one, which is almost at the same rate, is how do I do it? Which tells us that most people struggle with figuring out things for themselves and making up their own decisions. And so when you come in and you make it easier for people to make decisions, and you sort of also make decisions on their behalf, and they kind of see some kind of a benefit, then you become quite easily a person of value in their lives. And that's what I've learned, is that people are highly influenceable. And I've learned from ministry as well that once you've got a position of power, it's you better be accountable. Or you better hope, let's say that you better hope that whoever you submit yourself under in any kind of leadership, or even whether it's ministry or work or even in marriage, you better hope that that person that has that much power has an accountability above them that they account to, that they submit to. Whether it be their own principles, whether it be their own beliefs, whether it be God himself, or whether it be that they have, like I have in my particular case, I've got mentors, I've got spiritual mentors, I've got pastors, I've got people that can call me to account to be responsible with my own power, to be responsible with my own authority. But unfortunately, most people rise to the top and get to the top. They're the only person at the top and there's nobody above them. And that's when the abuse of power comes in. So if a perfect example is what's just happened now with this guy, Dr. Matthew, on TikTok. How does someone like that dupe almost 500,000 people? That simply tells you that a lot of people don't investigate, don't assess, don't pay attention, don't observe, they don't take in the small details, and they go with, most of the time, based on their desires, what they hope. They go with what is in front of them. They don't thoroughly interrogate what they're observing, what they're seeing. Another story is the story of Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. If you listen to the interviews of Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, those people have a relationship that they have agreed to. They've got a relationship that they've agreed to.
And they're okay with that.
And they're okay with it. And the notion that somebody as smart as Will Smith, who was able to amass hundreds of millions of dollars and build himself to be the biggest movie star in the world, all of a sudden is being controlled by a woman and he has no say in it. Like, how do you come to that conclusion that a man like that can be that easily manipulatable? And then when he speaks from the heart and he says, I support my wife, and then people call him names. Like, why? Do you know what I mean?
Because we want him to be controlled by us and our narrative.
Do you know what I mean? The thing is that there's a narrative, there's a disposition that people have, and then people always will relate to things based on their disposition. And our disposition can be informed by, number one, our own desires, can be informed by our fears, can be informed by experiences, it can be informed by our goals, it can be informed by, whatever it is that we think that is important to us, our own values.
Yeah. So you speak very well. And then in part of the work that you do, you are a speaker, right? When we met, you were speaking in the US.
Yes.
And then you touched base with me. I was in SAU in the US. We met via Zoom for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And then we met when you came into the country.
Yeah.
How did you end up a speaker and doing this work that you're doing internationally?
It was for survival. I found myself at the age of 39, having lost almost everything. What I didn't say is that there was a tragedy in 2016, which I won't go into. But the tragedy that happened found me in a situation where I was a single father of 3, and pretty much losing, everything that I had amassed with my now deceased wife. Mm-hmm. And I found myself in a situation where I'm 39, have not worked now for almost 10 years, struggling
because of ministry,
struggling to find a job, but I've got kids to raise and I've got assets to protect. And then I was asking myself questions about what am I going to do next? and I come across, again, Nico Leclerc tells me, listen, you are great at articulating your thoughts. There is an industry actually that is perfectly made for you, and that is a speaking industry. So he introduces me then to the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. I walk in there in April of 2019, find out about it, learn from the guys that are already in the industry. They tell me I need to have a focus area. and I thought, oh, mindsets. I love to talk about how people think, because I think that my problem in my life was never the fact that I wasn't smart enough, or that I wasn't a hard worker, or that I wasn't even resourced, or I didn't get the opportunities. But the way that I thought about myself, the things I thought about myself, the things I didn't think about myself, the things that I thought about my environment, the things that I didn't think about my environment. It's always about two things. What do you think and what do you not think? Is actually what contributed to me finding myself at the age of 39 and not being able to get myself out of the situation. So then I had to then revisit my life and go back and think about what was I thinking? What was I not thinking? What have I learned from people? And I put that into a course, the mindset development course, which I then started selling to different companies, which then gave me opportunities then to train on other things that I'm skilled at. Such as leadership, such as communication, such as relationships and entrepreneurship, team building, you name it. And then with that awareness, I started using my experiences as a tool to change my life. And then the next thing you know, from that time to this time, and now I'm the vice president of the association. And I've worked with over 50 different companies. I've traveled to multiple different countries. And now I'm finding myself as a mentor for many people in the industry who want to rise up in the industry. And somebody now who's well respected, quite well known even in the media, being seen now as a resource, or finding people like myself by many different media platforms. And all of that had to do with mindsets. It had to do with understanding that look at the outcomes of your thoughts, because your thoughts will lead to your beliefs will lead to actions. Everybody acts from what they believe, right? The moment you start to act against what you believe, you start to have that conflict and the confusion in your own life. And then your actions then will lead to the outcomes. So look at your outcomes. But then if you're not happy with your outcomes, then look at your thoughts. What are you thinking? Because everything begins there. And then if you look at your thoughts and you see gaps in your thoughts, then where do you need to go to fill those gaps? Who has a better version of what you're thinking about based on the experience, based on what they've done? Go to people who have done what you want to do and done it well. Ask them what to do. Go to the guys who haven't done what you haven't done and ask them what you should not do. The people who have failed at what you're trying to do. So you constantly become then this person that is constantly learning, but without having a particular purpose, without a particular target, you don't know what you're learning. What you're learning has no context. It has no direction. It is only when you decide, I want to become this, I want to become a millionaire, I want to impact people, I want to contribute positively to the way that South Africans think, to help them to think functionally so they can have far more better mental experience of themselves, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, better relationships between men and women. Because that is my goal. That is what I learn. That is what I extract from the environment. Then my mind has got a very specific way of extracting that information. And that's what I had to do from my own life. And then that's how I found myself then in the space of speaking, as the way that I believe that I'm a mediator. I'm a mediator between people. My job is to bring clarity, to simplify complex ideas and to articulate them in a way that is more easily understood.
Yeah. So is that why you founded the Mindset Development Institute?
Yeah.
And also the Success Mindset Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you always have a group of people in one room.
Yeah.
And you basically just shaping their mindsets. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we close?
Yeah, the Mindset Development Institute, we do quite a lot. I mean, we do research, we do quite a lot in terms of understanding how people think. The Success Mindset Summits are a celebration of people that have succeeded and then giving them a platform to showcase their mindsets to others so that others can be able to learn. So when I had you and you spoke about the 5 Fs. That is your mindset. That is your approach to family, to finances, to friendships, to fitness. What's the other one? Faith.
Friends.
Yeah, that's your mindset, right? Yeah. And so when you share that with people, then some people can really resonate better with you. Some could with Sandile, for example, when you were there, and other people. And so for me, that is very, very important that we provide platforms like that where mindsets can be showcased and people can begin to then change their own. Because I realize that my mindsets are only but one asset in South Africa. Mm-hmm. But then there's the asset in the form of witness. There's an asset with the form of the Vusi Tembewayas or whoever else that is out there. Yeah. Some of the incredible women, Lebulai and Opuseleto. I mean, those are people are assets. Why? Because they have taken the way that they think, they've been able to commodify it, they've been able to use it to succeed in their own lives, and they also be able to use that to help other people to succeed also in their life. And that's why for me, your mindsets can either be an asset or a liability.
Okay. Your favorite quote?
Life is tough. Everybody's looking for easy. Don't be the easy target.
Sure. Your favorite book?
My favorite book is The Heal Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. Mindset, The Psychology of Success by Dr. Carol Dweck.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then is there something you want to say to the viewer at home? Just 30 seconds, 40 seconds? Something that's in your heart that you feel like you need to say to them. Look into that camera. They're looking at you.
Sure. I mean, the one thing I'd say is you are much more than you have allowed yourself to think. You can do a lot more than that you have believed that you can. You can understand far more than you've allowed yourself to understand. Everything in your life has everything to do with what you think about yourself, what you think about the life that you're living in, what you think about the people around you, what you think about your ability and your potential to achieve even the things that you want. You always don't ever lose out on any opportunity to interrogate your thoughts and to measure them and to judge them, to analyze them against whether or not they're serving you and they're helping you to achieve what you want. If they don't, reserve the right to change them. And if it means that allowing even ideas from people that you don't like, go for it. The ultimate goal is to achieve what you want. It is not to be right.
Wow. Mr. Jabu Zwane.
Yes, sir.
I feel like we need a part 2.
Yeah, man. I know I went all over the place and kind of took away from the flow, but...
No, I want a part 2 because you were hitting the right spots. And I feel like you didn't have enough time to give more information concerning those areas. I mean, I know the kind of work that you do.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to having the part 2 of this.
Yeah, let's just do pure mind. Now that people have known me, let's just do pure mindsets. They go straight into it.
We're going straight into mindsets.
Straight into mindsets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Super.
Thank you, brother.
God bless you. Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
May God continue to elevate you.
Mabla.
All right, and that's it from us. Remember to subscribe. Remember to click on the notifications bell. Comment. Let us know what resonated with you. Let us know what your thoughts are. And let us know what your mindset is. And from me and my team in Johannesburg, it's more than just money. Peace out.
Yes.
Cut. Nice one.
Cool, man.